And we welcome you into the Unrivaled Weekly Preview Show. It's week number 3 of the college football season. Brian Tripp, thrilled to be with you today on a gorgeous night from the Lasch Building coming up. Head coach James Franklin's Wednesday media availability, and we'll also preview the matchup between the Nittany Lions and Tigers. As you can see there, that is where head coach James Franklin will address the media in just moments. Penn State against Auburn, 3:30 Saturday on CBS. The first time for Penn State on CBS since the year 2000 at Jordan-Hare Stadium. And Penn State, they are the first Big Ten opponent ever to play at that hallowed venue. Here is head coach James Franklin.
More physical up front, Auburn, than some of your other teams that you faced so far. What do you think this is going to tell you about your team in that area?
Yeah, obviously, these types of opponents, I think, Purdue, obviously, opening up with a Big Ten game, I think prepares us for this game maybe in a different way than, if we hadn't played them. But, we'll obviously we'll know a lot more about our team come Saturday night than we do at this stage. On the road, this atmosphere, this type of opponent, the athleticism that they have, we'll have a much better idea of kind of who we are.
James, you said last week when you didn't have an update yet on because I assumed it's Smithfield. Do you have an update on your status heading into this game?
No.
James, we saw Theo Johnson out there today. I know last week you said that you've been hopeful. Is he trending towards being able to play Saturday? Or?
Yeah, we're hopeful. No final decisions have been made yet, but we're hopeful. He's been doing a little bit more each day and a little bit more each week. So we're hopeful.
The way Auburn likes to run the ball, how big of a test is this for your secondary, primarily your safeties, coming downhill and attacking the ball in the run game? How much do you like to see that?
Well, yeah, I think you hope that it's the front seven and not the safeties, because when the safeties are getting too involved, that's when you're susceptible for the play action pass and the big shots. But there'll be a time and place for that. But, obviously you hope that you can, be as productive as you need to be with the front seven and not include the safeties. You hope.
Is this the kind of game where you're maybe rotating defensive tackles a little bit less just because you want your big chest guys in there?
Yeah, I mean, maybe obviously maybe compared to last week, but I don't know if probably compared to week one. I think this will be similar to what we have done because you're not your best if you're playing 70 plays a game. And we want to keep those guys as fresh as we possibly can. So I think it'll be probably a similar rotation to what we did against Purdue.
James, 2-game sample size now with Landon and Hunter over on the left guard spot. Is that something you could see sustaining pretty deep into the season if they both maintain their level of play?
Yeah, I think both of them deserve to play, and I think you're going to see some weeks where we have Hunter, take some reps at both guards. You're going to see some weeks where Hunter takes reps at one guard, and then the center position to give Juice a blow. But Hunter deserves to play. Effner deserves to play. Those two guys we kind of view as starters, and each week, depending on how they prepare and what the matchup's like, will kind of determine, how much they play, whether they start, whether they rotate, whatever that may be. Yeah, he was not out here today, but yeah, he'll be out here Saturday.
Has the running back rotation changed at all? Last week to this week?
We have not sat down and talked as a staff about rotations at this stage.
Hey James, when the college football playoffs kick in, what would happen to games like this? Intersectional against highly ranked, potentially highly ranked.
I don't think it I don't know. It really depends on the athletic director. It depends on, what the conference is pushing, the commissioner at the conference is pushing. I don't know. I don't know if it will change it. It really depends on the AD's philosophy, the head coach's philosophy, and what the conference is trying to push. I'm not necessarily sure. I think it's going to be pretty, individualized.
James, John, defensive players come up empty on the sack. Is that a natural byproduct of getting other positions involved with pass rushers or something?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we want more production. I don't know if I would describe it the way you did, but yeah, we want more production. We want more tackles for loss. We want more sacks. We want more interceptions. All those disruptive type plays that are drive killers and momentum changers. So we need more of them. There's no doubt about it, and that's for our entire defense.
James, Johnny Dixon was announced as a starter this afternoon. What went into that decision? Is that sort of still an ongoing battle?
Yeah, again, we talk about competition at every position. Johnny's playing well right now. Terry and the defensive staff and Manny felt like he did enough to have the opportunity to start. Really, rep-wise, it didn't really change a whole lot rep-wise for those two guys. But those are the type of competitions we hope to have kind of throughout our program and at every position. And as you know, I know you guys ask some of these questions. Very rarely am I going to tell you what the rotation is going to be before the game, whether I know or not, because I know Auburn is listening. So I probably won't get into a whole lot of those details in this setting.
James, through 2 games with Manny, we've seen a lot of different personnel groupings out there. What's been your kind of impression of all the guys that Manny gets involved? We see that 7 defensive back package out there. What's your impression of all those guys getting involved and how that's kind of played so far?
Yeah, in my mind, it's not a whole lot different. We had our 3-down package in the past. We're using that a little bit more, I think, on 3rd down. I think it creates a little bit more opportunities from a coverage perspective, from an athleticism perspective, and then from a blitz perspective as well. So that's probably the biggest change. Is we've done that in the past, but we're probably using it a little bit more. You got base, you got nickel, our old star, and then obviously our 3-down package, that we're using a little bit more now compared to in years past. So it's been good. I think it gets a lot of guys involved, which is always a good thing. And I think you're able to play to, maybe some players' strengths and hide some deficiencies. A lot of times you may have a young a young player that's able to do certain things and you're able to take advantage of them in certain personnel groups or game situations. So I've been pleased with it, but again, we do need some more of those, what we would call chaos plays, where you're getting a little bit more turnovers instead of PBUs and tackles for loss and sacks.
When you're facing a quarterback and you feel like you might have an advantage in a situation, how do you balance maybe not trying to throw too much at that guy to confuse him and possibly confuse your own defense or get people out of position versus kind of staying to what you're true to?
Yeah, I think that's the fine line always, right? You need to do enough. You need to do enough on offense and defense to cause your opponent challenges, but not too much that you're not executing at a high enough level in what you do. Because the reality is, as we all know, the less you do, the better chance you have of executing. So that's always the fine line, right? Of how big is the game plan, making sure that you're getting enough reps in practice to be able to execute those things, and making sure that you're able to execute those things versus all of the possible looks that you may get, whether it's an offensive formation or shift or motion, or whether it's a defensive front, or pressure.
Trey Wallace has kind of an interesting homecoming this weekend, given that it's a team that Penn State doesn't play very often, not like a guy from Ohio or something like that. Have you seen any excitement out of him this week? And just overall, it seems like he's worked his way into at least some kind of role. How have you seen his development in year two?
Yeah, I haven't really seen a change in his preparation. I mean, obviously it's cool. It's a cool opportunity for him to be able to go home, and it makes it easy to play in front of friends and family, which we are obviously aware of and happy for him with that situation. But his preparation and approach has been really good. I don't see a whole lot of change in the way he's doing it. But he is a guy that's coming on right now that's gaining confidence in himself. The coaches are gaining confidence in him as well. And we're gonna need guys like him to continue to step up as the season goes on.
James, we all waited a while to see Akeem Beeman back in game action. I know your staff did too. What's your overall evaluation of where he is through 2 games and where he can go moving forward?
Yeah, I'm pleased, but I also think he's one of those guys, like we talked about, that I think can really be disruptive. And we're knocking the rust off a little bit. He hasn't played, in games in over a year. But what he did all camp and what he's done, so far this season in practice, has been really impressive, and he's shown some flashes in games, but I think he's capable of being a more disruptive force in there.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Penn State head coach James Franklin addressing the media ahead of a pair of 2-0 teams squaring off down in SEC country coming up on Saturday. Penn State ranked 22nd this week, 2-0, with wins against Purdue and Ohio. Auburn, a big opening week win, 2-0 against Mercer, and then narrowly over San Jose State last weekend. The Tigers actually have won 17 straight home games against non-conference opponents dating back to 2016. So there is our matchup at 3:30. Let's jump into some of the key players going into this battle between the Nittany Lions and the Tigers. Penn State, Nicholas Singleton. Freshman combined for 74% of the yards in Penn State's win over Ohio on Saturday. 423 of those 572, and what a day for the Big Ten freshman of the week. 10 carries, 179 yards, a couple of touchdowns against the Bobcats. That's a Beaver Stadium record for a debut. The first Penn State running back since Larry Johnson in 2002 with a couple of touchdowns of 40 yards or more and 3 runs of 40-plus yards in the same game. Here's quarterback Sean Clifford. Man, he was good last year against the Tigers. Penn State won that game 28-20. Clifford, just 4 incompletions in the game, 28 out of 32, 280 yards, a couple of touchdowns. This year, he's already accounted for 7 touchdowns, 5 of those through the air, 2 rush touchdowns. There's a guy who had a touchdown earlier this year at Purdue. That's Brenton Strange. Clifford with a completion to 10 different receivers in the first half last week, and obviously he can do it on the ground as well. Well, Auburn's got a stiff run test coming in. Tank Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter, a pair of running backs, very dangerous. So where do we go? The defensive side, and P.J. Mustipher trying to stop that Auburn rushing attack. Robbie Ashford, backup quarterback, has also been involved. Mustipher, a team captain for the second straight season, second team All Big Ten. in 2021. Here are the Auburn Tiger players to watch. We just talked about Tank Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter. Dangerous duo in the backfield. Hunter had 3 touchdowns in the season opener against Mercer. Bigsby really is their bell cow. 29 carries, 198 yards, and 3 touchdowns this season. The offense is complemented by tight end John Samuel Shanker. The senior set the Tiger record for receptions and yards by a tight end in a single season last year. 33 catches, 413 yards, as you see there. And the defensive strength for the Tigers lies on the defensive line with Derek Hall and Colby Wooden at defensive end, but Cam Riley, the linebacker, making the most of his early season opportunities. A team-leading 21 tackles, 16 of those coming in the season opener against Mercer. Owen Papo, also a player to watch for the Tigers at linebacker. So those are our players to watch going into this week's matchup between a pair of 2-0 teams, the Nittany Lions and the Tigers. If you were at Beaver Stadium last week for Penn State's opener, there you see our matchup, Nittany Lions and Tigers. You got to see the great looks that our crew was able to provide on the video board. Our new shallow depth of field camera. Check this out. Fans, if you see that camera, make some noise in Beaver Stadium on game day. It almost looks like a video game. Part of the new features at Beaver Stadium for the game day experience this year. There's the Nittany Lion, the Penn State cheerleaders, but look how great this looks down on the field. And here it is, Khalil Dinkins making the catch for a touchdown, up close and personal, celebrating there with Amari Evans. Another one of those freshmen who had a big week last week. Let's see how they handle it as they go down to the south and take on the SEC's Auburn Tigers. Here's the safety from the bobbled snap, Jonathan Sutherland jumping on the recovery there. The Bobcats recover. Sutherland taps him down for the safety. And Keaton Ellis celebrating. What a look with our shallow depth of field cam. And when those players are on the sidelines, they are sitting on our DeWalt benches. Yes, our DeWalt benches. We appreciate the sponsorship from DeWalt and their partnership with Penn State Athletics. Those are our DeWalt benches on this gorgeous night here from Lasch Building. Let's take a look at that matchup one more time. Brian Tripp here in the golden hour. Penn State against Auburn, 3:30. Saturday on CBS. So we just heard from head coach James Franklin moments ago, and now up here on the patio, gorgeous night. We're joined by defensive lineman Chop Robinson. Chop, this is a nice night for a practice.
It is. Beautiful out here.
Well, I heard the speakers blaring. What has the preparations been like? What have you done as a team to get ready to go on the road in that tough environment, as you did in week 1 against Purdue, on the road this time to take on Auburn?
Well, the main thing for us is stopping the run. Have a good running back, good offensive line. I think the main thing for us is just stopping the run and stopping that fast running back that they have.
You obviously got the experience of playing at Beaver Stadium for the first time as a Nittany Lion this past week. I can see your face lighting up right now. What was that like?
It was just crazy. When I first walked out in the warm-up, it was just a lot of people there. I'm not used to that, but once we walked out, we ran out, it was just, the crowd was just going crazy, and I just felt juiced up.
What type of tone do you feel like your defense, as we look at some highlights here from early in the game, your defense was able to set from the get-go against the Bobcats?
Our main thing was just start fast, finish fast. So that's how we had to come out, and I think that's how we did.
What has the message been this week to try to do that again against Auburn?
It's the same exact thing. Start fast, finish fast. We start fast. During the game, it's not going to be as hard. But when we finish fast too, we'll be good.
What do you feel like makes your defensive line group so strong and so talented? Because it's not just you, obviously. Like, that's a really deep defensive line room that you have.
Everybody in that room takes stuff from other people in the room. Like Nick Tarburton, Adisa Isaac. I look at them. I take stuff from their game, and it helps me out a lot.
We just identified PJ because of his ability in the middle to stop the run as one of our key players this week. What type of leader is he for your defensive line?
PJ is a great leader. Even through the bad times, tough times like Purdue, when we was down, he would just tell us, keep your head up, just keep going. He's a great leader. I love him.
How does that experience of going on the road in week 1 and playing a very, very good Purdue team in that environment, do you think that can pay dividends now this week, going on the road and playing a very good team out of the SEC?
Of course, Purdue game, it was a lot of people. It's SEC, Auburn versus Penn State. They played last year together too. So it's going to be a huge crowd. I think that's good for us because we're used to that.
What do you feel like the strengths are that you bring to the defensive line? Obviously, fans have a chance to see you now twice out there wearing the blue and white. We're happy to have you here. But what are your strengths that you bring to that defensive line?
My speed, being able to pass rush and get to the quarterback.
if you're able to get to the quarterback this week, what does that allow? You know what? Let me change that question 1 minute. Because your secondary is so darn good on the back end, does that allow you just to pin your ears back to focus on getting after the quarterback in passing situations?
Definitely. It allows us, take our time. We don't have to rush getting there. So I appreciate the secondary, everything they do back there.
All right. Since you're playing as a Nittany Lion for the first time this year, what do you want to be remembered for this season? What are your goals out there on the football field?
Of course, win the championship and just win every game with my brothers.
Chop, really appreciate it. Good luck this
Appreciate
weekend.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chop Robinson, Penn State defensive lineman. Let's throw up that matchup graphic one more time. 3:30 against Auburn on CBS. Penn State last played on CBS back in the year 2000. We're going to see a lot more CBS coming up here in the very near future with the new Big Ten television contract. But it's Penn State at Auburn, 3:30, Jordan Hare Stadium on Saturday. So Penn State over Ohio last weekend. I got to look up at our next guest here. Come on in here, Olu. Come on in here. The offensive line was able to get the ground game going last week. What's it like blocking for those guys, Kevon, Katron, Nicholas, and Devin Ford in the backfield?
So far, it's been great. I mean, obviously, with how last week went, with us getting those large rushing touchdowns, it's just a little testament just to show how much hard work we put in as an offense collectively just over the offseason. And to see that happen last Saturday was great. So.
How do you take that and build upon it now?
Obviously, just find the small errors or little things that we can tweak in the run game and just keep building upon it. And, yeah.
And obviously you achieved that in the running game, but a lot of balance in the offense. Throwing the ball downfield, saw it from both Sean and Drew. What does that balance allow a team to do offensively?
It makes an offense dangerous because once you're balanced, you're not really predictable anymore. As a defense, when you're looking at it, you don't really know if a team favors a run or pass. If you're balanced, again, no one can predict what you're going to do.
What's your mindset every day when you take the football field, whether it's here for a practice, as you guys compete every single day or out there on the field?
Just getting 1% better every day. I mean, obviously, no one's a perfect player. Me, myself, again, I'm not a perfect player. There's always something that I want to work on, and as long as I keep that mentality, never staying complacent, I think we'll all be good.
Well, we were just talking to Chop, and obviously you have a very talented defensive line here. What's it like going against those guys every day in practice?
It's a challenge. It's a challenge. All of them are great. I mean, Chop has probably the best get-off I've ever gone against with any D lineman, and not just Chop, but all of the D linemen. Again, Chop, Adisa, PJ, Nick Tarburton. All of them, they're all just great to go against. And last spring with spring ball, and this past August with fall camp, I felt like we all made great strides competing against each other and just getting each other better.
The one thing I can hear in your voice is that there's a confidence there. How does that confidence continue to grow, and where do you feel like that is at right now as you take the field?
Yeah. I mean, me personally, the confidence is high, and with building confidence, I feel like, at least as an offensive lineman, the more confidence you have, or the more you build confidence, the more trust that everyone has around you. If you go about your business and you know that you have a certain job to do, and everyone around you knows that they can trust you, that you'll carry out that job every day, it just builds more trust and confidence.
Having a guy like Sean Clifford back there, having Juice Scruggs at center, those veteran presence on the offensive side, how much easier does that make your job out there as they're there with the experience of playing in big games, but they know the situation, they know what plays you're trying to get in and get out of. What does their leadership mean to your offense?
It's been great. Both Sean and Cliff, both of them being older guys, it's great to have at least two guys to look up to. I mean, not to say that I don't look up to all the other older guys on the team, but
I look up to everyone. Look at me.
Yeah, no, but just those two specifically, just having them around the offense, just brings a sense of just calmness in general, knowing that everything's been all right, everything's gonna go all right. These two guys have been through everything, so.
And I saw you guys out here today, and you could hear out here today that you're preparing for the environment at Auburn. What are some of the things you emphasize as an offense when you go on the road into any tough environment like you did in week number 1?
Again, like I said earlier, just trust in the guy next to you, at least from an offensive lineman, just trusting the guy next to you, having that confidence that they're going to do their job. And once you have that confidence in the guy next to you, it just makes everyone's job a lot easier.
Olu, we can't wait to game day.
Thanks
so much. Appreciate it. Olu Fashanu, Penn State offensive lineman. And now he's one of the guys hoping to get to the next level. What a week it was for Penn State in the NFL. Let's take a look back at some of the Week 1 accomplishments for the Nittany Lions. Saquon Barkley returned to the New York Giants with a monster Week 1. 18 carries, 164 yards on the ground, and 6 catches for 30 yards. 194 total yards in the Giants' 21-20 comeback win at Tennessee. He scored the team's first touchdown right here and ran the ball for the winning 2-point conversion. New York pulls the upset on the road in Tennessee. Also at running back, Miles Sanders scored his first touchdown since 2020 and led the Eagles with 96 rushing yards in the Birds' 38-35 win at Detroit. Sanders put the game away late in the fourth despite a gritty Lions comeback, breaking it to the outside, and Philadelphia hangs on 38-35 in Detroit. Wide receiver Jahan Dotson with an impressive debut. 2 of his 3 catches going for touchdowns. His first NFL TD in the second quarter, and this game-winning 24-yard reception from quarterback Carson Wentz late in the fourth in the Commanders' 28-22 victory. Finally on offense, a wild game in Cincinnati. Tight end Pat Freiermuth had 5 receptions for 75 yards, including an overtime grab to set up the game-winning field goal. Pittsburgh wins it 23-20. Freiermuth with a big day at tight end. On defense, Bears safety Jaquan Brisker forced this fumble and recovered in his debut in soggy Chicago. Also, Cowboys linebacker and reigning NFC Defensive Rookie of the Year Micah Parsons with 2 sacks on Tampa quarterback Tom Brady. Dallas, though, comes up short in the opener. And finally, Arnold Ebiketie making his Falcons debut. And here it is, a sack, his first career sack on Jameis Winston. A great week number 1 in the books for Penn Staters in the NFL. Obviously, it's a busy week for the Penn State football team as they head down south to take on the Auburn Tigers, the first ever Big Ten opponent in Jordan-Hare Stadium to take on the Tigers, but also a busy weekend here on campus. And Zach Gershman, one of our student reporters, is at Rec Hall right now. Zach, a busy weekend here in Happy Valley, even though the football team's on the road.
Yeah, busy statement is honestly an understatement. But, Brian, I want to point out something. You said that Penn State has not played on CBS since 2000. Let me put it in perspective. I wasn't even born. That is mind-blowing to me. Very exciting for the Penn State Nittany Lions to get onto CBS. What's also exciting is the action that's going to be taking place all across Penn State's campus. But even away from Penn State's campus, the Penn State field hockey team will be traveling to Michigan to battle it out on Friday at 5 p.m. You can see stuff on your screen. You can see the schedule upcoming on Big Ten Plus. Men's soccer will battle it out against Wisconsin. We'll talk a little bit more about that game. That will be Friday at 7 p.m. Also at Friday at 7 p.m., Howard and Penn State will kick off in the Penn State Classic. 2 other teams will be playing in addition to Penn State Howard. There'll be Coastal Carolina and Albany. Penn State is set to play a doubleheader against both those teams on Saturday. And also in golf, to go from the court to the courses, Matilda Delavalade, a record performance on Tuesday at the Cougar Classic, went 7 under. And for all golf fans out there, they know how impressive that total is.
Well, I certainly know, and you've already aged me tonight, Zach, so I really appreciate that. But that is a Penn State school record to shoot 7 under in one round. And, well, Zach Gershman, tell us one more thing about that Mac Brady match that's coming up on Friday at Jeffrey Field. You said it's a big one for the Nittany Lions soccer team, no doubt about that, but also some special activities going on around that game as well.
Yeah, definitely. It is the Big Ten opener for Jeff Cook's squad. But even on top of that, the Mac Brady game, to give you a little bit of background, Mac Brady passed away when he was 16 days before his 9th birthday, was a diehard Penn State fan. From 5 years old, he knew he wanted to be a goalie for the Penn State Nittany Lions, and unfortunately, unexpectedly, had a blood infection that ultimately took his life. And the Penn State Nittany Lions soccer program, both men's and women's, has made sure to honor his legacy through clinics, funds, and the annual game that will be taking place on Friday against Wisconsin.
All right, Zach, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Great work as always. Zach Gershman from our GoPSUSports.com talent team over at Rec Hall. And I am joined now by someone that's very familiar with that building, Maddie Bilanovic from the Penn State women's volleyball team, coming off an unbeaten weekend on the road, winning 2 matches in 5 sets against Stanford and Oregon in the Big Ten Pac-12 Challenge. Maddie, congratulations on a great weekend. I know you know that place right there. Pretty fun place to play.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this past weekend was awesome. I think that we need to acknowledge those last 2 wins. Those were great teams, super competitive, and I think it's all about just moving forward now and focused on this next weekend where you have 3 good opponents coming up.
Well, so many new faces for your team coming into this year, obviously on the coaching staff, but also with transfers and freshmen coming in. So exciting to see all the new faces. It seems like your team is really bonded from the get-go. How are you able to do that as one of the returners with all the new faces coming into the program?
I think our big focus, like since day one of all the new girls coming in, was inclusivity. I mean, we said from day one that we wanted to be a team, and in order to do that, like, you have to have good chemistry. You have to always be willing to go the extra mile for your teammates, and we reiterated that every day.
What's it been like playing for Coach Katie Schumacher-Cauley?
Katie's been awesome. I mean, I think that she expects a lot from us, but that's what we signed up for, and Katie expects us always to give 110%.
We're looking back at some of the highlights from this weekend. This is against Stanford, at the time ranked number 11, a pair of wins against 2 ranked teams. Penn State this week, now at 8-0 on the season, is ranked number 11 in the AVCA poll. Tough task going to Minnesota to take on Stanford and Oregon. What did you learn about your team in these 2 matches?
I think that obviously those 2 opponents we were faced against were great teams, great programs, but to play both of those teams and win in 5 takes a lot of grit and a lot of hard work, and especially to never give up on each other. So, I mean, I think that we learned that we have a team that can go down to the last minute and really just fight our hearts out.
And I think that's something that could really pay dividends, as you know, going into the Big Ten. Like, those are 2 matches when you go 5 sets that really have a Big Ten feel to it.
Of course, yeah. I mean, we're excited for the Big Ten play to start, and I think, like I said, we're just focused on one game at a time.
And I know that's the message this week. You're not trying to look ahead to the Big Ten. It's on the horizon. We're getting closer and closer. There's light at the end of the tunnel. But that's the message every day, right? To build on that momentum and get just a little bit better every time you're on the court.
Yeah, of course. Like I was saying earlier, it's all about the next match. Definitely acknowledge the good we've been doing, but always to look forward in our journey.
A couple of players that earned accolades this week from the Big Ten. What has Cash Williams brought to the table?
Cash is fire, like 100%. Anytime the ball is set to her, I know she's going to give a 100% hard swing. And she knows that the back row is behind her, covering her. And it's just like a trust aspect there with that. And her energy she's fire, like I said. I know
Salesa Elisaya, as the setter, has looked really good. That's because all the passes are right to her out of the back row, right? But what's it been like playing with Salesa so far this season?
Salesa been awesome. I think that she came in and she accepted the challenge that she wasn't very familiar with all of us. But since day one, since she's got here, I mean, she's a very hard worker. And I think that also, like, I want to add that Allie Holland was also acknowledged for Defensive Player of the Week. I mean, she comes in every single day, and if Allie's in front of you, she's giving her 110%.
I think whether it's Zoe or Taylor, like, we can go on and on. There's so many. When you have players any given night, it could be anyone contributing, anyone rising to the occasion. That makes a really dangerous team. Do you feel like you have that type of personality to your volleyball team?
I 100% do. I think that all 17 of us, no matter what sub is made, we trust each other, and we know that we put in the work outside of the game days to implement that into those games and be competitive with any team we're playing against.
So for fans coming out this weekend, 3 matches, what can they expect? If they're watching this right now and they're Penn State football fans, they haven't been to Rec Hall in a while, what can they expect if they come see your team?
They can expect a lot of energy from every single one of us, and I know they're going to bring just as much.
Pretty nice night out here.
Yeah, this is insane. I was telling, I've never been up here, and the weather is beautiful. You just can't really beat it.
This is the view. The golden hour you were up here, and hopefully a golden weekend for your team.
Yeah.
Maddie, really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
Maddie
it.
Bilanovic, libero for the Penn State women's volleyball team, with us here on set. Penn State and Auburn in football coming up on Saturday. Don't forget the women's volleyball team home for 3 matches as well this weekend. In fact, their head coach, Katie Schumacher-Cauley, she's going to kick off the Penn State Coaches Show tomorrow at the Field Burger and Tap. Is presented by Pepsi. Katie Schumacher-Cauley, the first guest on the show tomorrow, and then Penn State football head coach James Franklin coming up. But there's our matchup, Penn State and Auburn this weekend on the road, then Penn State back home to take on Central Michigan on September 24th. You see the Nittany Lions' upcoming schedule. Some home games on the horizon. Central Michigan, then back into Big Ten play to take on Northwestern, a bye week. Then Michigan Minnesota, Ohio State. Man, this is just getting good. Penn State 2-0 on the season. That win 35-31 at Purdue, and then 46-10 against the Ohio Bobcats to kick off the home slate last week. Let's go through some reminders real quick for our Penn State football fans. If you're coming out, make sure you download the new Penn State Nittany Lions mobile app. If you look on your iPhone or your Android device, it should say Nittany Lions underneath the app. That's how you know you have the right one. And if you're coming to the game, as you know, check those traffic patterns. Go to gopsusports.com/gameday for more information. And fans, we also want to remind you about the Beaver Stadium clear bag policy. Those are what's permitted, 12 by 6 by 12 or smaller. So a little bit bigger this year. Also, everything you've brought in the past, your wristlets, your clutch, and then what also is not permitted inside Beaver Stadium. Then coming up, we'll be back with you on Saturday for the Unrivaled post-game show live from Jordan-Hare Stadium. Penn State, the first team to visit Jordan-Hare Stadium, a Big Ten opponent, the first Big Ten opponent going to take on the Tigers in their home den coming up on Saturday. So that's when we'll be with you next. Also, don't forget, next week we'll have another edition of the Unrivaled weekly game preview show. Hopefully the weather's as good as this. This was a great night here at Lasch Building. Thanks to all our guests, and thank you so much for tuning in. For our entire crew and team, I'm Brian Tripp saying so long. Can't wait till kickoff on Saturday. Penn State at Auburn, week number 3. We'll talk to you from down south in the heart of Alabama.